We're going to look at some of the other editing tools. And again, all these tools can be used to make things look realistic, but we can also use them in ways to make things look unrealistic. So some of the other tools that we haven't looked at yet, spot healing brush, patch tool, healing brush, and the clone tool. That set is what we're going to focus on right now. And so I have a couple of pictures uploaded. You guys should get we're going to start in the giraffe. We'll move to the golf ball, the beach people, and then Bluebeard. And some of these will spend more time than it. Some of them will go really quick. But we're going to start here with the giraffe. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit on one of the stripes. So about 7 tools down, okay, we have, it's probably set to the Redeye tool. If you click and hold on that, or maybe you see a Band-Aid there, okay, that tool set is where we're going to be focusing mostly today. So all these do something a little bit different. I want to start off with the one that you'd probably use least often. So we'll select the patch tool here. So let's say we wanted to get rid of a big spot like this line. Let's say we were trying to remove the stripes of the zebra or the giraffe. We could just click and kind of do a freehand selection here over what we want to get rid of. And then we're going to click on the inside and drag it to somewhere where we want to fill the color in. So I'll show you here. If I click on the inside of the selection and drag it, you're going to see it's going to replace that stripe with the fur. And so I can just let go, and you can see how that worked, and then Command D to deselect. All right, so one of the reasons why this may not be the best tool, you can see it kind of made it blurry. It did a pretty decent job, and this is a tough edit if we were to go through and try and remove all these stripes. But that gives you an idea of what it does, okay, and some of the downsides to it. So what it's doing is it's just blending in 2 different sections. It took our selection here and blended it in to where we, the new area. If I were to put it over here where there's a white in there, you're going to see we're going to get not so good of results. Okay, so that's the clone, or I'm sorry, that's the patch tool. Good for larger areas. It will leave some blurriness. So sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it makes it difficult to work with. And a lot of these tools to do what we're doing here, it's going to take trial and error. You don't really know which one to use until you try it out. All right, so the next one we're going to look at is Content Aware Move Tool. And so again, for editing, you're probably not going to use this for like editing someone's face. But it could come in handy, and since we're like in this tool set, we'll look at it. So again, we use it the same way. We just click and drag, and what this is going to do, it's going to replace the 2. So instead of blending one in with the other, when I let go, and then I can double click, and it moves it, and then it replaces what's on the inside over here. And if you look at this blend, for this specific picture, it does much better. So the name, what it does is in its name, okay, it moves something, and it also flips the color. And you could just deselect to do that. All right, so in that situation, again, most of the time when you're doing like an edit, you don't really want to move something, you just want to get rid of it. So you just got to use your judgment. All right, and now let's go to the spot healing brush. And so this, again, very logical. It uses a brush tool, so we can resize that using our bracket keys. And you want to make your brush about the size of what it is that you want to zap away. And so we're just going to click and let go. And so that was a little bit bigger of a spot than I would have liked. Took a couple clicks to get that one. Now, if we're doing something on a human face, like acne, this tool is amazing. We can just click and it will instantly blend it in on one click. So this tool is not meant to be dragged. If I am trying to get rid of this like stripe and I click and drag, it's not gonna look good. So this tool is good for spots. A single click, let go. Now the next tool here is the healing brush, and this requires a little bit more effort and just understanding. First thing we need to do is identify a target that we want to use as like the good thing that you want to keep. So if we have a patch of good skin that we want to use, we would hold down the Option key, click and let go, and then let go of the keyboard. And so that right there is our source. And now I'm going to come over here and click and drag and get rid of this stripe. So you can see how a little cursor showed up. And that is what I'm copying into the circle. So the crosshair gets copied into the circle. And so you're going to see as that crosshair moves from brown to white, how that's going to affect my blend here. All right, so when my source was up top in the brown, it was pretty good as I crossed into the white and then back into the brown. So this tool, what it's doing is it's just blending colors together, and you can reset this as much as you need to. And try to clean things up. So again, when you're using this tool, it's for bigger areas that need some pretty significant editing. We'll look at some examples here in a minute of some other cool things that you can do with this tool. But out of this tool set, that's going to have some good uses moving forward. And again, we'll look at examples. The other tool I want to show you that is not in this set is the clone stamp tool. And this works really the same way as the healing brush. Okay, we're going to identify a source. So I'm going to hold down Option and click and let go of everything. Then I'm going to go down to what I want to remove. And again, you can see the crosshair. And as I move the circle, it's filling it in. All right, so the difference between these two tools, the clone stamp you want to use for things with hard edges. The healing brush will, as you can see down here, it's going to feather the edges and blend it more. So sometimes that's good, sometimes not so good. And a lot of times when we're doing these kind of edits, these significant kind of edits, you need to go back through and use a second tool to blend this in better. So I use a clone stamp, and you can see that there's little traces of, I call it residue, where you can see where the edit took place. So sometimes I'll go through and I'll follow it up with maybe the spot healing brush to try and clean that up a little bit, or some other tool to help just blend it in a little bit better. Okay, so that gives you an idea of these tools and what they do. So we're going to see them in some more practical ways now. I'm going to go to this golf ball image, and we're going to switch to the healing brush. And I'm going to make this nice and big. And what I'm going to do is, let's say we wanted to make a copy of the golf ball. We could identify that as our source, and then move over here, and we could just click and let go, and that drops it right in. So we can use healing brush to copy things as well. And we would want to use a healing brush for this because, again, it feathers the edges, and because this grass is really busy, it just kind of blends it in really, really well. If we were to try to do that with the clone stamp, we can see what the difference would look like. All right, so the clone stamp didn't really work out too well in this case. You can see it's not quite as clear, all right, because it didn't really blend it in. And so it depends on the background when determining between healing brush and clone. And like I said before, the only way to really know is to try it out. Pick one, try it out. If it doesn't work well, try out the other one. I'm going to go back to this healing brush. Okay, so we added a golf ball. We can also remove one. So I'm going to hold down the Option key and select this as my source, the grass. And I'm going to come over here and just click and drag a little bit, and it's gone. So that's pretty cool. All right, so those are some uses to this healing brush and the clone. Okay, you can add things and subtract things. So if we look at this next picture of the people, let's say we wanted to get rid of the woman here. We could go to, and again, we could select her and move her out. The problem with that is that if we took a selection tool, let's say I spent an hour of time selecting her and moving her out of the image, there'd be a hole there, and that is not good. All right, we don't want a hole in the image. We just want to replace it with like some water and make it just take her out completely. So in that case, this is Scream's healing brush or clone stamp. So we can come in here, we'll do Alt Option and select some source, and we can start taking her out. Now this is kind of blending in some of the red there, so I'm going to come back with my clone stamp and see if I can do a little bit better job with that tool. And that looks a lot cleaner. All right, so another thing to pay attention when using these tools, I wouldn't want to move up and down in this case because the textures in the background is going side to side. Okay, so we go from white to like this green color. So if we were to take our source here and then drag down, actually that worked out pretty well. But that's not always the case. Most of the time you want to go with the texture, because in this one you can see the white of the water kind of stayed along the same axis, and so that looks more realistic. And don't forget the details like the shadows and reflections. and that looks pretty good. Okay, so those are going to be two tools that you're gonna practice on. All right, so we have this guy called Bluebeard. We have the before, and we want to get to something closer to this. All right, most of this you can do using the tools that you know. So again, we would start at the top, kind of work our way down here. I'd start with the Redeye tool. No Redeye, so we don't need to worry about that. Then we're going to check the next thing, sponge tool. Do we need to enhance color for maybe eyes or remove color for maybe teeth? No teeth, don't really need to enhance eyes. We're going to keep moving. Dodge tool, do we need to brighten anything up? Arguably, I mean, maybe some things would be some of these shadows, like if we wanted to just brighten it up a bit. But I think for this specific image, we don't really need to do that. Or maybe under the eyes a little bit. But that would probably be all I do with that. Burn tool darkens things. So we could try some things. He's got gray hair. We could try to add a little bit of color there. There's not much to work with. So that would really be the only thing that I would attempt to do with this. When it's gray hair like that, the only way to really get it back would be to do an airbrush layer. And let's see, now let's move into the spot healing brush. So let's go check out that. There's quite a few things we could do here. So again, this tool, we just click and let go. There we go. Okay. Make sure on your settings, you usually want this proximity match selected. And that's going to do a much better job. So we can get a lot on here. And typically you want the brush to be about the size of the spot that you're trying to get rid of. Now something like this, that's this big, you can see it didn't really work out too well. That's because there's too many just colors going on there. It's pulling some different shades of browns and whites. It's just too busy. So we'll have to find another tool to do that. And again, our goal here is not to make people look perfect. We just want them to look, improve it a little bit, get rid of the obvious stuff. All right. So you can continue to do this as much as you'd like, use that tool. And then when you're ready, we're going to move on to the patch tool. And patch tool, again, is for bigger things. So the first thing that stands out to me are these white creases in this photograph. So we're going to switch to our patch tool here. And I'm just going to do my best to freehand this. Wherever you start is where you got to stop. And then we're going to click on the inside and drag it down just a little bit. And maybe try that a little bit. There we go. All right, so you can see it wasn't perfect. I probably took too big of an area. So either I can find another tool to edit that or undo and maybe take smaller sections of it. I think I'm going to do just zoom in and take smaller sections of this. Okay, so again, we could have tried some other tools with this. You can notice like we can definitely see some errors here. There, up here, it may have kind of messed up where his eye is here. Generally speaking, it did a pretty good job. We could have tried going through using maybe the clone tool or healing brush to see how that would have worked out. Probably would have been a little bit better, but for sake of example, we'll keep moving. So now I'm going to switch to my healing brush, and we're going to see how this works out. I'm still going to try and work on this area. Again, I'm going to focus on, I'm going to select a good source that I want to take color from. So this looks pretty clean. I'm going to go up here and just go over it a little bit, and that looks a lot better. I want to touch up this area. So again, it's got a defined edge here. So I probably am not going to want to use my healing brush. You can see some of that black got carried over into the other part of the skin. So I'm going to actually switch over to my clone stamp and retry that. I'm going to select some black. And this is working out a lot better. All right, so we still have some areas here where this line was across. Patch tool kind of, it got rid of the white, but it led to some other issues here that we could address. So I think maybe we could go to our healing brush here, and that's just going to help blend this in a little bit. All right, so one last thing I want to show you with this guy. So clone stamp, the other cool thing that we can do with the clone stamp. So notice how his eyes here are not symmetrical. So if we try to, I'm just going to do Option key, click on the eyeball, and try and copy it over here. All right, it's not in the right orientation. We need to flip it. So I'm going to undo that. So you're going to go to the window menu. You're going to see this clone source panel option. We're going to click on that. It's going to open up probably a little button here for quick access. So this is just our clone stamp tool. If we ever needed to use this again, we could just click that and open it up. And this gives us some options here. So notice if we try to just copy this eyeball over here, okay, it's not going to be in the right orientation. So we want to flip that, and we have some options here. We can flip this horizontally or vertically. In this case, we want to flip it horizontally. So now when I go and try to do this, it's in the right orientation, and it looks much better. So notice some of the other options here. We could have changed the angle to this. We could increase the percentage of this. So if we wanted this to be twice as big, we would change that to 200%. But just another cool thing that you can do with the clone tool. So go ahead, touch this guy up, take a screenshot of it or save it as a PNG and upload that to Canvas. And again, we want the guy to look pretty good. It doesn't need to look perfect, but we want him to look pretty decent.